Hello and welcome to the Call to Courage podcast. I'm your host, Gareth Pickering, and I'm joined today by Gareth Martin. Hello, sir.
How's it, my man? Thanks for having me, bud. Good to see your face.
Good to see you too. It required me actually asking you to come on the podcast in order to have a conversation with you. I feel like we've been trying to chat for ages and we haven't quite made it work.
Yeah, but I mean, I have to take all responsibility for that. But to be honest with you, like being a dad now and having a lot less time on my hands, I have definitely neglected like audio messages and getting back to Oaks and stuff. So I do apologize, but
Perfectly understandable. How's it going being a dad? Talk me through that journey, bro. I can only imagine it must be just like a complete shift in everything that's important in your life.
it's probably the most magical thing I've ever experienced. To be honest with you, it's everything. It's much more than I ever sort of thought possible. It truly is just a blessing. I love every moment of it. You know, it's a complete change to your life. Absolutely, what everyone says, oh, your life changes completely. It's so true, but you know, it changes in a magical way. That's for sure.
Like,
I
what do you
mean,
notice? What's shifting?
I think if you are conscious as a parent, you allow your kid to be your teacher, and they remind you of a lot of things. Even the smallest things in life, just to be so like present, to laugh at nothing, to giggle, to smile like as much as possible. Like, her smile is infectious, but it's insane. Like, and she just looks at you and smiles, and you're like, you smile back instantly. And yeah, I mean, and kids are also really good for bringing out your kind of like shadows and stuff like that. There's, a lot of people have unresolved issues, and if you want to resolve things or at least have them exposed, have yourself a kid. That's for sure, because they can definitely show you a thing or two. That's for sure. So, but I mean, it really is just amazing. But yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to a good night's sleep at some point in the future, but yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world.
What shadows are you noticing coming up? What do you see in yourself that's being reflected through Maya?
You know what? I don't know if I've noticed any myself yet personally. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, only because I've probably been on this journey for 10, 15 years myself, yeah. So I don't really know yet, but there will be something there that she will show me. I can tell you that actually having dogs, but maybe it wasn't a shadow, but well, maybe it is. I don't know the true definition of a shadow, but like my dogs helped me realize still had a bit of anger in me actually, and yes, I was surprised with myself at how flippin' much I could get angry with my dogs, but and I think that was actually one of the most, I think, important things that happened was getting dogs, because they brought out this kind of like excess anger I had. And I thought I was a calm oak, right? But they brought this
Uh-huh.
out in me. And then I think for that reason, with Maya, I've been like, I mean, extremely, extremely calm. Not, I mean, it's completely different, like she's your little daughter, and they're obviously dogs, so you can't. I mean, you can't compare. No one. Please don't get sort of too upset about me saying this, but people listening. But yeah, I think the dogs definitely showed me that I had to sort out something inside me that made me a little bit angry still. So yeah, and Maya, she still has to show me exactly what it is, but yeah, but what a blessing. But I really, yes, I know I've said this to you on like audio messages before, but I think, yeah, I think people like yourself, people like Kragos, whatever, like, you know, like should be ones that are having kids as well. Like we there's in the world, there's a lot of wrong people breeding, but, and unfortunately sometimes, you know, um, people that should be breeding aren't as well. And yeah, But anyway, that's me rambling on. But sorry.
No, I it's been such an important conversation to have, and I think when you shared with voice notes, we've been backwards and forwards a little bit over the last few months, recognizing that there's gifts and perils in both of the choices. You know, the choice to become a parent as well as the choice not to become a parent, and the obvious ones are. You know, you have more time, you have more money, you have more space, you have all of those things if you choose not to go on that adventure of becoming a parent. And there's a part of me that needed to mourn the journey of what it means not to realize that I'm going to become a parent to a human. We have animals, and I resonate with your saying with regards to like bringing up stuff like being a dog dad has been super intense at times, and it's put a lot of pressure on our relationship, and it's really forced us to look at stuff. So I resonate with that. But there's also, maybe this is the same for you, but growing up in South Africa, there's this general expectation in the world that you will become a parent. This was like sort of part of what we had when we were brought up. Like, you'll get married at some point, you'll have kids, that's the drill. And so when you choose to make a different decision, not only do you have to mourn your own future memories, like the ideas of what it would have been for Gareth Pickering to be a dad, et cetera, but also there's like this sort of collective projection that you have from your social circles and friends and family and people that care about you, who think that this is what you need to be doing. And if you don't, somehow life doesn't have as much meaning, you know, because that's how they see the world. So yeah, I've had to sit with that as well. And we've got a mutual friend, Craig, and we've had a similar conversation about what it means to make both of those choices and the pros and cons of both.
Yeah, but I mean, I was in your guys' sort of camp, I guess, for a long time. Like, I didn't really want to be a dad. You know, like I didn't. I was like, I think I was just selfish. You know, I was like, oh yeah, my life is great. I want to travel. I want to keep doing whatever I'm doing. You know, and my time is precious and stuff. And yeah, and then I met Marissa. I mean, we met 8 years ago, and I mean, she probably would have had a baby a month after we kind of met. She's been broody for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, over time, like I became like, I was like, yeah, I definitely want to be a dad now. You know, I met somebody who was so keen to be a mom, and
Yep.
yeah, I'm so glad that I did, bud. I'm so glad that I did, because it's something amazing to experience. Like, there's just something so amazing about having a kid. But I mean, it's hard to explain. But you know, just what they show you, the way they are, just the light they bring to your life, and it's just amazing. So yeah, no, I'm glad that that over time I shifted my mindset, and yeah, kind of like almost, I don't regret at all anything, but like sometimes you're like, yes, yeah, I should have done this earlier. Maybe had a couple, you know, but yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
we're very happy with one super healthy, super happy, beautiful, loving daughter, and I think that's going to be our path from here forward.
So no plans to have siblings for Maya.
We've thought about it, eh? We've really ummed and ahed about it a lot. But at the moment, we're saying, yeah, we're just going to have like Maya as our sort of only daughter. If it does happen, it happens. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, right now, I think we're just gonna keep Maya as our only daughter.
Mm.
Keep it. That
Awesome.
sounds
And how's it
strange.
been for?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. How's it been on your relationship? Has it been smooth sailing for you and Marissa? Has it brought up stuff between the two of you?
It's no ways, Yesy. I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I think if anyone says it's smooth sailing, they're probably lying to you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because, bud, you know, you sleep deprived for a lot of, you know, at least the first. So for the first 6 months for us, Maya actually, she wouldn't sleep by herself, but she would only sleep on us, right? So it was always like
Mm-hmm.
one of us would have to be sleeping with her, and that was like, you know, that's during the day, obviously in the night as well. So you're not really sleeping that well, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so like, you sleep deprived, and you're kind of irritable, and you know, sometimes, you know, something happens and you just kind of like bark at each other, and then it just goes down, you know, badly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely hasn't been plain sailing, you know. And then you're dealing with, you know, generally the girls are, you know, they're a bit more hormonal, and you know, also very sensitive. because things like breastfeeding are, very emotional process, especially like when it,
And
say, it doesn't go
intrusive, eh?
well. Yeah, I don't know about
Mm-hmm.
intrusive. I think it's quite beautiful actually, but I think, like, say, like, you learn, you only learn about things once you've had kids, but like, so like a lot of women suffer from a thing called mastitis, which is like the hardening of their breasts, which is the breast milk getting flipping hard, and it's painful. And also it's like, you're like worried because, okay, cool, I'm not going to be able to breastfeed, not cool, but like, like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be able to breastfeed. So it's an emotional thing to go through. And then the
Mm-hmm.
baby, sometimes, they don't suck on the boob. And once again, it's this connection that the mother loses to the child, and it's a very emotional thing. So yeah, there's all these things that sort of happen that you don't know until you've had kids, and you, I mean, as a father, like, you really have to, just be very conscious of how you are, and just be super zen, super super calm, and extremely supportive, and do what you
Mm-hmm.
can where you can, in the first few months. But yeah, there's definitely been some big rorts, um, but that's okay. I think that's actually part of it. But like, it's not like that anymore. Like, the last, like, say, 2-3 months have been amazing. As soon as Maya, like, started sleeping, by herself, not needing us, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just us having a bit more of our own time, and time together,
Mm-hmm.
it just changes everything. But so a lot of it, I think, which where people sort of might get sort of stressed out or have issues in their relationship, um, when they first have kids, they must realize that it's a lot of it. The stresses are temporary, you know, and you will get over it for sure, and things will get
Mm-hmm.
much better. But you definitely need to both, kind of be on the same page, and understand that it is going to be a bit tough, and you will get through it for sure.
Hmm. Take a step back and let like our listeners know who you are, more or less, in your origin story by sharing the roles that you've played. We've been through your journey now a little bit as a father, but like as a son and a brother, how's that journey been for you? And what's your origin story through those two lenses?
Well, as a son, I mean, both my folks are South African, like yours, were born in South Africa, um, and yeah, I mean, sure. Where do you begin with a question like that? Yeah, I mean, hmm, I want to answer this for you nicely. My my parents are both highly talented people, um, but they weren't actually meant for each other. So, like, we went through a very messy divorce growing up as a son, and as a sister. My sister, I have a sister, Alison, and I think that was really, really tough, and um, yeah, going through that was a very difficult thing for me. Like, I'm a happy child. I had a happy child, and I was well looked after. But I think the divorce was kind of like a bit of a turning point in, yeah, just being a child, um,
A turning
and
point, like how there was a shift there or something changed, or
well, I mean, now all of a sudden, your parents are living in different places, in different houses. They're not talking nicely about each other. Um, they are playing games against each other, because, I think what happens, Bud, is a lot of the time, we carry issues that we don't resolve. All of us, or every single one of us, and sometimes that plays out, in what always plays out in various different ways. And yeah, I don't know. My mom was, she was, I think, deeply hurt. If I think about it, that's probably the right way to put it. But it came across in a bit of a different way, like it was, um, yeah, it wasn't an easy divorce, but I felt like I was sort of used a little bit, in that, as sort of collateral damage. Um, but you don't know it at the time. But this is all just sort of me looking back in hindsight.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, yes, that was quite hectic growing up, going through what we went through, and yeah, and I actually went to face everything. It was weird. Like I moved to London when I was 18, and then I the first time I went home, I think it was 2 years afterwards, and I said to myself, I'm going to go home and I'm going to sort out every issue I have, like, with anybody in my life. And it wasn't many people. There was like 3 people or something like that. And two of them I wanted to speak to was my parents, and just be honest with them about, like, what happened and how I felt and what it meant to me. And that was such an amazing thing, but it was so weird. Like, looking back now, I'm like, yes, this, like, how did I, like, why did I do that, or like, where did I come up with that, even though, to try and start that sort of healing as such a sort of immature little 20-year-old boy. But something in me knew that I had to sort of just speak to them about it. And
Hmm.
ever since then, but I think my relationships have been like great with my parents. And
Awesome.
we sorted that out. So as a son, like, everyone has their stories, and I love my parents to death, and they gave me lots of great sort of talents and skills, physically and mind, and all that sort of stuff. But they also showed me certain things, and we went through a lot of ups and downs. But now we're all adults, and now we kind of we realize, like, what happened, and not all of it was great. um, yeah, so sorry, man. It's a great question, like, and I hadn't even thought of an answer, or obviously didn't even know you're going to ask it. So, so I'd have to formulate that, I guess, over time, and give you a better
Yeah, it's
answer.
that it's that moment when we realize that we're raised by imperfect humans. Like as a young person, I think we have this idea that everybody older than us knows and is somehow perfect. But in many ways, especially with like any sort of awakening journey or any sort of healing work that generations like us have had access to, that our parents have had, they become, normal mortal human beings, and that's it's empowering to realize that.
But that's actually been one of my greatest realizations of being a parent, is that I look back, like, I mean, I look at me and I'm like, yeah, see, there's so many things I have not got together. You know what I mean? And I'm so
Uh huh.
like like I'm such a kid when it comes to so many things, and I, like, then I think about my parents, and I'm like, they were the exact same as me at the end of the day, like, they were also just sort of figuring stuff out. And, even though they were older and you look up to them, you're like, they don't flip and have half the things sorted out that they should, And
Uh huh.
so that's been like a great realization for me, like, how, yeah, I mean, I don't know, just looking back at say what my parents were thinking and doing as I was growing up, and just realizing, yeah, they're just the same as me. They had so many things unresolved and still to figure out, and they're just you know, trying to grow up these two kids as well as they can, and have the other stresses of life too. And so it's been a good lesson, actually, good reflection, that's
Hmm.
for sure.
And are your folks in good health?
Yes, yeah, they are actually.
Awesome.
Everyone is in good health. Yeah, I mean, my yeah, everyone is good, but yeah, I mean, there's
Have they met
something.
Maya yet?
No, but they haven't. My mom really wants to come to Brazil. It just wasn't the right time, but to be honest with you, like, early on.
Yeah.
Um, but now she's actually in Australia, just with her brother, and she's there till February. And then later on this year, it'll be nice for her to come over and meet Maya. Um, it's been a bit of a challenge with my dad, I won't lie. Like, yeah, it's so strange, but I mean, I know I'm saying this. I feel like bad for saying this stuff out loud, but it's all the truth. So I wish, like, my
Thank
old
you.
man would be a bit more excited
Uh
about
huh.
being a granddad. It actually really
Hmm.
hurts me that he's not, like. at least he might be, but he doesn't show it and he doesn't talk about it, But I also know
Mm-hmm.
my dad is, he's a little bit of an awkward guy, especially emotionally. And I totally understand why. Like, I mean, over the years, I've really asked my dad a lot about his childhood and about his mother and his brother and his dad and all these things. And I mean, yes, if someone grew up in a troubled household, that guy did, and yeah, I guess how he is a true reflection of his upbringing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's no excuse, though. I think we all have a responsibility to deal with our stuff at some point. But
Mm-hmm.
it does make some people awkward about certain things, And my dad is um, he's not a type of guy that's like really going to tell you how a lot about his emotions, or show them. Although he has really softened a lot over the last, say, 15 years and become much more open. And him and I, we do discuss like nice, deep things, which I really, really enjoy. But still, sometimes I know it's really hard for him to express himself.
Mm. And your dance as a brother, how's that been as a sibling to Alison?
Yeah, but it's been. Look, I was a little bit older than Ellie, not much, like 3 years, and I mean, I have great memories growing up, but not like tons. I mean, one of the cool memories I have, which I remember, we used to play like in the swimming pool, but for hours. Like, I mean, we used to play this stupid game. Like, we would swim, like it would be in the deep end, swimming like the widthways of the pool. One person would have a tennis
Mm-hmm.
ball in their hand, and the other person, and they would swim at the bottom of the deep end, and they would let the tennis
Uh-huh.
ball go, and then it would like float up, and the person at the top had to catch the ball before it like got to the top, sort of thing, and
Uh-huh.
and you'd get points for however. Yeah, you'd get points for like however many you captured, and we would play that
Uh-huh.
for hours, like hours. And our mom would be screaming, "Come!" Not screaming, but she'd be like, "Come! It's dinner time, dinner time, dinner time." And yeah, and that was like, I think we had a cool relationship as brother and sister. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but we were like a few years apart, and we did have some issues like with. With during the divorce, like, there was times where I like didn't speak to my dad for a couple of years, and there's times when I went and stayed with my dad. Then there was times where Ellie didn't speak, to my dad for a
Mm-hmm.
while, and then there's times when she went to go stay with my dad as opposed to staying with my mom. And and then so we also had, I think, sort of breaks in like how often we were around each other. um Yeah, and then, but I mean, I left to go, like I said, to London when I was 18, and I kind of really lost touch with my sister. I guess it wasn't a time where I think email had just come out, sort of thing, So it's not like now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the time I really remember reconnecting with my sister was when Blackberries sort of came out, and she had a BlackBerry and I had a BlackBerry, and they had that BlackBerry Messenger, and
I
we
remember.
started, and Messenger was free, and you know what us South Africans are like. We don't spend money on text messages. Like, we
All right.
free messaging, like with BlackBerry Messenger, was amazing. So we actually reconnected with on BlackBerry Messenger, and that was really, really cool. And then yeah, I think over time, like, we even though we've lived pretty much in different countries since I was 18, we've grown much closer together, and that's been very special. We've met overseas a lot of times, um, as brother and sister, but also sometimes with like with Ellie's like boyfriend Greg, which has been super cool. Yeah, and then I think the last year has been actually very tough on us. Like, we had a hectic incident with our mom, and that kind of like, we both, I think, saw things a little bit differently, and that definitely put a bit of a what's the word, like a strain, should I say, on our relationship as brother and
Mm-hmm.
sister. and
Okay.
it's I think it's still going to take a bit of time to heal that properly. So that's been that sucks. Like it sucks, especially because it's not necessarily like our fault, although it is, of course, because I guess our communication, our way of seeing things wasn't good, and it was a highly emotional thing. And I know that there's some stuff that needs to be spoken about and resolved there, and I don't think it's a thing that sort of time necessarily heals. So
You mean action is the requirement?
yes, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
We can kind of ignore each other if we want, but that's not actually going to resolve anything.
Yeah, man. When you look going forward as your role as a father, what are some of the main characteristics you want to embody as a father for Maya? What are some of the words you would use to describe your ideal path?
So to teach her, is that what you mean?
Who do you need to be the father that you want to be for Maya?
Oh, who do I need to be? Okay. Well, I need to be someone that leads, I think, through action. Kids are
Okay.
sponges, but they literally copy you everything that you do. And I think with any kind of leadership role, not that parent, I guess parenting is some sort of leadership role, but
Very much so.
yeah, I mean, so I will just need to teach her through my behavior and through my actions. So I guess teaching her good values through showing her good values, um, teaching her good morals through showing her good morals, and so it all stems from my behavior and Marissa's, of course, like,
Yeah.
and how we are with each other for sure as well. Um, so I think the overarching thing is literally through my behavior as a dad, and through our behavior as parents. That's how we really are going to teach her, and yeah, and just allow her to learn what she needs to learn, and not be, I guess, too pushy or whatever. But yeah, that's probably it.
What are some of those values? What do you see? I mean, I get it. I think the modeling of what you're talking about, like model what it is that you want your child to be. What are those some of those values that you want to embody?
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to teach her um, resilience, right?
Okay.
I think, I mean, it's always been a good, I don't know if it's a value or a trait, but it's definitely something I want to sort of impart on her. Like, you can't necessarily say teach like happiness sort of thing. You need to teach people to be resilient and strong, and that will then allow you to feel things like happiness. Um, I want her to understand that the world is not all rosy necessarily, and it's going to require, like, hard work. It's going to require determination. It's going to require discipline to to get, I don't know, whatever she wants in life. But that stuff allows you then to be happy, to have fun, etc., etc. Um, the other thing that I really think is important that I want her to remember and to try take on is just to be kind, and just aware that, flip man, we're all very different. We're all experiencing different realities, as you say a lot. And if you can keep that in the back of your mind when you are talking to people or talking about people or being with people or being around people, you will allow for much deeper understanding, much deeper relationships, and a lot more sort of empathy and kindness. And I'd like her to sort of realize that.
So good. In some voice notes going backwards and forwards over the last few years, you and I have spoken about some of the what's the word, like maybe the pain of some sort of conscious awakening, like how painful it is to look back and to see others like perhaps on a different path. Share some of that journey as it's unfolded in your life over the last few years, like even some of the rabbit holes you've looked down, some of the places that you find yourself spending attention. Like what's
Yes. Okay. It's a great question. I think it's probably for me become more. I've become more aware of the true shenanigans in the world over probably the last 5 years. But I turned off my TV about 10 years ago, right? And I think that's actually the start of the sort of deprogramming. And when you stop consuming the news, but it's amazing what you can actually learn and spend your time on, and yeah, and what else you can consume besides that brainwashing that is spat out at you every single day. Um,
Mhm.
so I mean, yeah, some of the things that I have I guess the last 3 years have been a real eye opener, in terms of this, should I say, fake pandemic? Am I allowed to say that? That
It's your
is,
opinion. You can say whatever you like. Yeah,
yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah. So, like, I mean, that has been like a massive eye opener for me. But like, because you know what, like, it's actually it made me really, really sad. But how so many people that I flippin' am like good mates with, that I feel just very distant to them, based on, I guess, how they see the world, in terms of, like, what is told to them by, say, media and that sort of stuff. And I just feel I do feel sad that people don't think for themselves, and like they'll just believe what is spat out of them, and then they're very defensive if you provide a counter narrative, or just even ask a question to say, well, tell me like more about this, knowing that they wouldn't really be able to give you, I don't know, a good reason for it. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's hurt on a like a friendship level, but also a more collective level, as like a humanity thing. I didn't realize like so many people were like, I don't know, just took everything that they were told, like, and like believed it. Um, it just kind of blows my mind how the critical thinking of people was kind of non-existent. Um, yeah, but it's also, I mean, it's also
Before we
good.
move there, I want to
Yeah.
ask you: is your critical thinking not also coming from consuming media? Like you making your model of reality based on the data that you have, like without knowing that there could be another level that you're not able to see. Someone else may feel the same pain when they try and connect with you and speak to you about something else.
No, for sure. But I mean, I think it's like a bit of a dangerous game, isn't it? You think kind of what's going on, because you're consuming the opposite to somebody else, and who knows, maybe I'm being told, like, also brainwashed by certain things.
Hmm.
I think the only difference is that, say, guys like you and me, we're at least taking in both our information and the information that, say, our friends are taking in. Uh, they're just taking in the information, say, from I don't know, BBC or News 24 or whatever mainstream media, and they're not open to even listening to a counter narrative. I think
Hmm.
we are more open to listening to both, because we understand that there are always two sides to a story. There's always more truths than just one. And I think that is the difference, right? But I do agree. I can't necessarily say, well, I'm definitely right. But at least we are listening to two different stories, and sort of trying to make some sense of that. Does that make sense?
It is. I've had to find my peace in recognizing that there aren't two sides to a story. There's three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 sides to a story, and I look at various versions of my own timeline and I can see a version of Gareth that never left South Africa. And I would probably be one of the mates now that was sucking up mainstream narrative because I don't think I would have had the conscious awareness to perhaps have access to or have a model of the world that at least provided spaciousness for me to want to look. When you don't know what to look for, it's not even an option for you to look. And so, yeah, but then what happens is I get to this place where I'm like, okay, now I can see this, and this, and I can see shenanigans as you talk about it. But I'm like, I don't know, that could be a double dummy. We've been programmed in so many ways. It's very easy to plant ideas, different counter narratives and stuff to create a separate narrative where suddenly I think I now know, okay, I see that side and I see the baddies and therefore I'm good. It's like, I don't know, there's probably another fucking 20 layers that I still don't see that are, yeah, every day is a conscious awakening. And there's more and more stuff that I think there's so many things that we don't know. There's so many things that we've had the wool pulled over our eyes about. And every time I go down a rabbit hole, it just goes like, it expands out. And I'm like, whoa, that's really, firstly, sometimes really dark, sometimes really painful. And then it's like, okay, well, now I've got that. And then suddenly someone will be like, what shape is the earth? And you'll be like, I don't know. I think it's round. And they're like, how do you know that? You're like, I learned it in school. We're like, okay, but then, fuck it. All of these things are just my constructed reality based on everything that's been programmed into my world. And suddenly I'm like, shit, if someone has genuinely got an incentive to make me believe, that we have to have countries or that the world is a specific shape or that this is why we need money, all of that could be bullshit, eh?
Yeah, but it's super interesting, man. I yeah, I mean, just some of the stuff, like you said, like that people believe in, that you think, yes, you've really lost your mind. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah. So I remember years ago, like some mates of mine, they invited me to this WhatsApp group about flat Earth, and
Mm-hmm.
and these oaks I'd wake up in the morning and there would be like 50 messages, but not like short messages, like long messages with links and everything. And these oaks like literally arguing back and forth, like, yes, it is, no, it isn't, blah, blah. And eventually I was like, you oaks are flipping crazy, like, I mean, I'm
What position are you holding at this point? Are you open minded or you just think these guys are all mad because the world's actually around?
at that point, no, at that point, no, I was very open minded, but I was like, oh, I'd never really heard of that because this is like a few years ago, and I was like,
Mm.
oh, well, I mean, I'm open to listening to the argument for sure, but then eventually I was like, yes, this the Oaks just, I mean, they it was like a cultish behavior, but like, and I think that's
On both sides.
on both sides, yeah, yeah, totally, totally,
Yes.
like, and I was like, you know what? I don't think it really makes right now a big difference in my life. So I'm just going to flip and get out of this group because it's just a waste of my energy, and I'm just getting frustrated. You know what I mean? Um, but over like the last few years, like I've really become interested in a lot of like crazy things like that, and it's amazing. But like some oaks, I've got this one friend who I've actually never met in real life. I mean, like at the last 3 years, I made so many friends online, which is kind of crazy, kind of cool,
Mm-hmm.
kind of crazy, kind of not cool. But there's some oaks that like they actually won't talk to you unless you believe that the Earth is flat or like a dome shape or something. And I'm like, listen, I mean, you could be right, but you could also be flipping wrong. And, like, let's not let this sort of get in the way of our relationship. But people become cultish, but in terms of things they believe in. And I think that's what you were saying about, both sides, like, the propaganda and the whatever is comes heavy on both sides. So it's been a real awakening, but probably one of the most important things I think is that it has made me much more open to listening to arguments about anything,
Mm-hmm.
literally about anything. But I'll definitely, yeah. I mean, it's not for me to to be the person to decide, but I'm really interested in listening to how you debate different things and what you believe in. So I'm really open to listening, and I think that is an important thing, because as soon as you have like a you shut off to certain information is when you stop actually growing. But I mean, it doesn't have to be about that particular thing, but like as soon as you stop yourself from not wanting to listen to somebody talk, you just sort of, you're shutting yourself off from so much growth yourself. And I think that's not a good thing to do. Joe Rogan always says something really interesting. He's like, we must allow everybody to say what they want, and he's like, but what you have to do, if you want to argue with them, you must come up with a better argument than what they're saying to you. And I think that's really important. We must all be allowed to say almost anything we want. But if you really want to get your point across, make sure that you have a flipping great argument. You are super articulate, and that will allow you to at least have a stronger argument or get your point across.
So what's something big that you've changed your mind on over the last few years? Like, what's something that you thought you knew and now you've gone like, actually, that wasn't it.
Yeah, see,
You can have a few, yeah, if you want. I know there's a lot of these.
I think maybe what it's another way for me to say this. It's created a lot of distrust for me, but in a lot of things that I've kind of been told, a lot of things that we are told we have to do. Like say like when it comes to your children, right? You have to follow a certain like way of doing things in terms of education, right? In terms of medical things, like say vaccines, in terms of I guess that's just kind of like one example, and a lot of those things are total lies, like that people have been led to believe for at least the last century. Yeah. Just remind me what was the question again exactly? Sorry.
Like something that you held, like an idea that you had that you've now changed your mind on, like a belief that you had. You were like, actually, I don't think I believe that anymore.
Yeah. See. What is a good one that I've changed recently? Yes, nothing is like popping out right now that I can actually remember. But I think, like I said, the thing is it's just created this distrust, and I don't know if it's distrust is probably the right word in many industries, and what we are educated and how we educated, and that I actually need to sort of do much more sort of deprogramming and go just find out things for myself. I'll have to think about exactly like a good thing, but nothing sort of can't remember one right now, to be honest.
No, like what's a rabbit hole that you've been down recently that you found interesting? Maybe that's another way of asking it. Like, what's
Okay,
something
I'll
that
tell
you've
you. I'll
looked
tell
at and
you a
been
really
like,
interesting rabbit hole that I've been going down, which is not necessarily. I don't know. Maybe it's not like a misinformation thing, but I think it's something that is not really spoken about a lot. And that is actually birth trauma. But I recently spoke to this amazing lady, like on my podcast, and it was actually like a very difficult conversation. And she's like, I understand that this is a difficult conversation because most people have never actually thought about this or dealt with it. And she speaks about birth trauma and how so many of us, probably like 95% of us, are dealing with some sort of birth trauma. And that has a lot to do with the process of birth. Also, like, so pre-birth, like prenatal, the actual birth of your kid, and then afterwards, as well. Like, things like, say, ultrasound. Like, and I had heard this before, right? And then when I went and asked my audiologist cousin, she said I was talking rubbish, and I was like, okay. But they say that like ultrasound is a huge cause of distress for kids. It's actually super loud. It results in a lot of kids now having hearing issues. Also, many other issues, even fatalities, because of the sound of it. Then I don't know if you've gone down the sort of circumcision rabbit hole at all. That one is pretty scary. And I never thought of it as a form of torture, and I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess there's always two arguments, but the what we've been led to believe is that it's like really good and clean and important and whatnot. But actually, what it takes away from you and it is so much more bad, like than people can even comprehend, And when she told me the process of it, but I don't know if you probably do because this is your realm, She was telling me that like they take this board, okay, this little board, and they strap the baby boy to it. They literally strap his legs and his arms to it, and they flip and take a syringe and they put it into the flipping the foreskin, and then they flip and do what they got to do, right? And when I was on a ward with Marissa giving birth, I've never heard so much screaming and like you're like, yes, that's what's going on here. Just sounds like so painful. All these ladies going through birth, but from all accounts, is like the ward that they do the circumcision on, which is the little boys that are then screaming, is like 10 times worse. And that is just the process is hectic. And then, there's so many other things about our birth and the medicines and stuff that they give to help it, the epidurals, the cutting of the cords, the getting rid of the placenta, and then they sell that blood off to whoever else and stuff. It's heavy things. I guess this is maybe one of those things that you asked me about, and this is probably one of those rabbit holes which has been a very recent one where they talk about like people wanting children and child's blood to inject into themselves to keep them youthful and stuff. And it's like, it sounds absolutely crazy and like why no one would ever do that. You stupid, Gareth. You know what I mean? Like, don't even think about it. But once you, I think, become aware of this stuff, but just the way that people behave, and I don't know if you even I just saw some stuff today when I was searching on Twitter, like the Grammys last night, like the scenes there, like there's this real dark, evil undertone to it, and nothing surprises me anymore. But with what these like sort of elite ruling people might do for pleasure, and that's been very dark and difficult. And I can tell you, but it's made me a flippin' more protective person than I've ever thought I would possibly be. Seriously, but if anyone came close to my daughter, I would fucking destroy them. I can't even begin to tell you what dad energy and dad protectiveness comes up when you become aware of some of these disgusting things that go on in the world. So actually, that's a to answer your earlier question. I think that's probably one I've gone down a bit recently.
Such gnarly topics. I wanted to come back to your friend who you approach with the idea that ultrasound isn't good, and I think it's really difficult for that person to have the thing that they do and use and have trained for and studied with and make a living from every single day be somehow evil. It's the same as telling somebody that believes that the world is round that it's suddenly flat. Like when someone told me that, I'm like, it shakes everything that I believe to be true about reality. And so it's really uncomfortable for you to even be able to hold that as an opportunity, as a potential. Like, how could this even be true? And the same is true with the darkness. If you're not prepared to look at the potential shadow of what it means that there might be a market for foreskins or placentas or something like that, if you're not prepared to look at that, I'm not saying it's true. I haven't been down this rabbit hole. I understand that what you've said, that there could be a market for that, and that young blood, the stem cells that come from a placenta, are the most vibrant and youthful, and that that could be true. But if you're not prepared to look at that, or it shakes you in a way that you're not able to hold that, yeah, it makes you feel really uncomfortable in every part of your being. Eh?
So something really interesting, but this lady was telling me about, because I said, because I mean, some of the stuff people can say what they want, I guess, on a podcast, but sometimes you kind of have to challenge things a little bit as well. It's important, not necessarily because you don't believe them or you're trying to be a hard ass or whatever, but just maybe to get a bit more information out of them. So one of the things that she was saying was, she was like, I mean, I was like, yeah, but people that say work in the medical industry, like, I mean, my mom's a nurse. Like, I don't think my mom is like an evil person, and she worked on the maternity ward, and she yeah, I just don't think that she would do these things intentionally,
Mm-hmm.
because she's a type of person. And then she was like, listen, Gareth, she's like, I agree. Like, I know exactly what you're saying. She's like, I've written some books on this. She's like, let me give you one example. This is not of children, but it's of vets. She said, I had a lady that wrote into me, or that I interviewed as sort of part of citation and evidence for my book, that in her veterinary education and studying, uh, they were they had to go through this training where they took a dog, right? And this dog was in like this tank of water, okay? And they,
The body of a
the
dog, a
body, no,
corpse.
no, 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 it's alive, bud. The dog's alive, right? And it's a live dog. And they took the dog and they submerged it in water completely, so that like it couldn't breathe, right? And they did this like repeatedly. They effective and all these veterinary students are there watching it. I can't remember the exact reason, like that they actually do this. Although one of the reasons that they do it is to make people like hardened, that are in the industry, like vets, and they're hardened to the cruelty um, of an animal. And I was like, yeah, see, I mean, she explains it much better. I can't remember exactly all the details, but it's like along those lines. And they go through it repeatedly. So eventually they're like, yeah, this is normal. And they just become normalized to this cruelty. And she's like, you need to understand that, like, sort of the medical profession and stuff, they have similar things that they will teach and show and whatnot, and that just makes them sort of like numb to a lot of things that they actually see, and they kind of they kind of like normalize a lot of things that are not normalized. And yeah, that was pretty hectic, but to even think, like, that people that are, geez, I mean, parents and friends and everything that are in that industry have gone through shit like that to kind of make them think it's normal. I mean, I still have to
Mm.
obviously speak to people kind of in that industry to understand more from them, to get the other side of the story, because I think that's only fair. But like I said, I wouldn't say this lady's lying to me. That's for sure.
It's not much different, even maybe without the cruelty side, in terms of how we're led to believe and create our reality from whatever it is, like whatever we're told in school, that becomes the thing that is taught to be true. And so, if at any point in terms of that process of educating or programming or feeding of information that we use to create our reality is in any way normalized, even without the cruelty, it just becomes somehow acceptable. And so people don't even feel, like you said, they don't realize that they're doing anything wrong, and they're not out there to necessarily, follow something vindictively or be on a path vindictively. They're just doing what it is that I normally do. And this is how we deliver babies. And this is what we do to young boys. And this is what we do to dogs. Whatever the story is, like, that just happens to be what it is. And that's how we create our reality. It's only when we take the time to look or find out something that there's another potential incentive, or the data that we've been given to educate us or to teach us is somehow skewed or incentivized or aligned to another way, that we suddenly have this awareness that there's anything else happening. And, you know, up until honestly, this is for me, maybe not even 5 years ago, circumcision would have been, if I'd had a boy, he would have been circumcised because I'm circumcised and I understood that to be the way that it was. Some story about it being cleaner, etc. It turns out it's all bullshit. Like it takes away a lot of the ability for the connection that happens inside intercourse. Like there's many, many things that are happening as a function of that. And the more I get reconnected, this is really a journey of coming back to self, is realizing when we do things like that, we're somehow saying nature doesn't really know what it's doing. We need to do something better. Like this is not perfect the way it is. We need to do this and make a decision that's outside of exactly what it is to naturally give birth to a child. Even like the cutting of the umbilical cord, that's not the way that it's supposed to be done from what I now understand, having spent some time in the presence of midwives that look at traditional births like that's supposed to fall off naturally. It's supposed to stay connected for quite a long time. And it's like I had no idea. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously I haven't been through birth or even been on that journey, but it's like some part of us thinks that we know better than the natural process of what it means to give birth.
Yeah, but and that was like the big eye-opening thing about this conversation I had with this lady. She's like, I'm just here to educate people on how to have a healthy, well, birth, of course, but like just how to do things correctly. She's like, because we're not taught any of this stuff. You're taught, you're shown like porn and taught about sort of sex and all these things, but you're not actually taught about, wow, the beauty of like giving birth and how to do it properly and stuff. And she's like, it's so weird, like how the world has become like sort of extremely kinky, and that's okay. Like that stuff's okay, but let's have the good stuff too, like growing like healthy people, having healthy births and natural births and the way they're meant to do, I mean, I know it sounds like a crazy concept. I don't know if you've ever heard of a lotus birth, but it's pretty amazing. But so the placenta is actually like a living being, right? It's responsible for the breathing of a baby and supplying its nutrients of like and everything too. Like it's actually its life force. They say the placenta. So some people have this thing called the lotus birth, which you deliver the baby and the placenta comes out with it. You keep the placenta and the baby connected it's like for 8 days or something like that. I mean, it could be longer. It's you allow for everything to disconnect naturally, but literally, the placenta and the baby are kept together, and that life force, the nutrients, the energy, the whatever it is that's kept in the placenta, like is there for like a full 8 days, because it's still attached to the umbilical cord, but um
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, people do this. It's pretty amazing. So you have this like kind of freaky looking thing, placenta, right? But it's
It's
and you
only freaky because we think it's freaky.
no,
Like if this was
exactly.
how it was done, it would be like this. That's the way we give birth.
100%,
Yeah.
bud. Yeah, yeah. And then all you have to do is you literally like have to put a few sort of herbs on it, from what I understand, and there's no smell or anything like that. And I mean, you're literally giving your kids, wow, what an amazing opportunity to start their life, But I mean, probably 0.0001% of people experience that. There's a
Mm-hmm.
there's a there's a really cool guy on Insta. What's his name? It's called like the Fallback something. I can't remember exactly, but his wife recently like gave birth, and he sort of documented the whole lotus thing. And I was like, yes, that's kind of crazy, but now I know more about it. I'm like, that's flipping awesome.
There's so much stuff we don't know. It's like every single day you find something out and you're like, oh my God, wow. Like no idea or
Yeah,
like a completely different perspective. And I think it's where we got to at the beginning of this, which was like just recognizing that you stay open to this stuff, just continually believe that there might be a different way to give birth to a child or to understand how nutrition is administered or medical practices may work. And yeah, I think the more we stay open to that, the more possibility we have to expand our awareness about other ideas that we may not have access to.
Yeah, it's a very important thing, but to remain curious, to question everything, and to challenge the status quo, bud, for sure.
Mm. What's coming up for me? I'm going to make a note to try and find someone who knows like the details of circumcision and get them as a guest on the show, because I think it's going to be such an important conversation for men. Again, we just don't have access to this information. We've just told a specific thing, and yeah, we just take it at face value and carry on with our lives. And these decisions just perpetuate, like without having this knowledge, you just make the decision again for your kid and pass on the knowledge down to them. But I'm really keen to dive a little bit deeper into this. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up.
But I can put you in touch with a lady. Her name is Janice Barcelo. I can really put you in touch. She would be able to tell you everything. There's
Was
also,
she on your show?
yeah, she was on my show. Yeah, I haven't launched that yet, but I will soon. She was actually on another guest that we've had in the past. His name is Luke Story, who would be a great guy for you to get
Ah,
on.
did you have Luke on your show? Yeah, I
And
followed him for a while.
yeah, and he spoke a lot about the circumcision and stuff, and he's done a lot
Mm.
of research into that himself because he's also circumcised and these sort of things, and yeah, there's some pretty crazy documentaries on there that I can forward, or you've probably watched them yourself as well. But yeah, I can put you in touch with those two
Send
people.
them, send them through, and I'll put them in the show notes of this podcast for those that are interested. And I'll try and get a bit more information as well as when you launch yours. Share that interview.
I will, but for sure, yeah, it's a heavy listen. I won't lie, yeah, you have to kind of, I don't know, like because it's something that almost, I don't know, this is the first time I've ever heard of it in my entire life, but I'm 42 years old.
Mm.
I've never heard of like birth trauma. I mean, when you think about it now, it's like, okay, it's pretty obvious, but like actually something that almost all of us carry is pretty heavy and hectic, but also at the same time, it's made me a little bit, not a little bit, it's made me bit more compassionate about people and a bit more, even more wanting to know a little bit about them, and being interested in their behavior. And yeah, so because they're probably dealing with stuff that they don't even know. Like as a result, I went and asked my mom and my dad actually. I was like, "Oh, can you tell me about my birth? Like, you know, just everything that you can
Mm-hmm.
remember." And
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky. I think I had a pretty normal birth and was delivered naturally and was really quick and all that sort of stuff. I was circumcised. Actually, this is really interesting, and I think it's something I definitely need to explore myself. I was circumcised at 6 weeks, and apparently the doctor did a terrible job, and I was circumcised again when I was 2. Um,
Oh fuck.
so I've gone through it twice, and I can't imagine it was an enjoyable experience, especially at 2. um, so that's something I need to delve into a little bit myself too. So um, it's important for us to ask our parents about our birth, but also about their birth, because this lady, right? So what's really interesting about it is she said the trauma carries on unless you resolve it, right? So for her, she had 5 births. Not one of those babies survived. And that was because she had trauma from her birth that she had never dealt with, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. So, we know this stuff gets passed on through generations and whatnot, and it's a good question to ask at not the Christmas table, but in private with your parents. You know what I mean? um,
Hey,
yeah,
mom, did you eat the placenta?
yeah, exactly. Well, you see that's
Can you
also,
pass the turkey?
yeah, you see that's also very interesting. Because that's become like a thing now. But actually, this lady's saying is there's only like 1 or 2 instances when you should do that sort of thing, because if you are eating the placenta, you are taking away your baby's life force, which is not cool. But she's like, there might be instances where you, as the mother, possibly the dad, but mostly probably the mother, where you are really, really struggling, right? And you almost have to ask for permission, and you say to your kid, obviously obviously they're not going to say yes because they're tiny, but you say, listen, I would really like to have some of this because I'm struggling with a bit of depression, or my energy levels are so low. So you ask for permission before doing it. She's like, in that instance, it's kind of okay. But a lot of this new agey way of doing it is actually sort of almost evil, because she's like, well, they're teaching us cannibalism, because once again, the placenta is a living being. So it's a deep hole, but it really, I was like, yeah. So it was a real eye opener, that chat.
So let's talk about what you're creating at the moment. You had a co-creation with Craig in the Ridiculously Human podcast. You guys took a little breather from that. Share what that journey was like as you guys created that first round. Share about the break that you've had and what your visions are for the podcast going forward.
Yeah, but geez, I mean, the podcast was one of the most amazing things I've ever done in my entire life. And doing it with Craig was just sort of extra special. We just gelled as oaks when we first met each other years and years ago, and then like we always had like cool conversations, and we're like, yeah, see, we should record these, and maybe people want to listen, and and ultimately we decided to do it. And it was, I mean, what's so cool, I mean, you obviously realize this because you have your own podcast, but it gives you permission to ask people to speak to them that would probably never ever ever be in your realm, so to speak, and all they can do is say no, bud, like they can go, no, I'm sorry, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like link busy, I'm only going to be on Joe Rogan, sort of thing. But
Right.
sometimes those people go yes, and you just get to have this long form conversation with a great mind, and it's just like you there, picking their kind of brains and listening to them speak. um so we went through like 117 guests, like we interviews, and we did a lot of our own podcasts too, so we probably did like 160 episodes in total. And it was just one of the best learning experiences. It changed our worldview. It opened up like just conversations that we would never really have. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was just definitely one of my most fun things that I've ever done in my life. And but also most interesting, and one of the probably greatest growth spurts intellectually that I've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, and doing it with Craig was amazing, because actually we often like to speak to different type of people, and
Right.
Craig always brought in people that were like more kind of like alternative thinking, and I really enjoyed that, even though I was like, yes, but looking back now, I'm like, yeah, those were really cool people. And he always thought like quite deeply about who to get on. I think I was more like, let's just go, go, go. And I'd get like, people on to sort of keep ticking the guest list over and stuff. And he would think about other like types of guests, and what they would bring to the show, which was amazing. And
Right.
yeah, doing it together, like it teaches you a lot of stuff about friendship and about doing business with friends. And yeah, that there is some magic to be had, by doing a collaboration like that. And it definitely made us like just sort of the best of buddies. It was probably one of the most difficult decisions to stop doing the podcast, and we totally stopped at the wrong time. But I mean, my God, we chose the wrong time. Like we were we were really kind of like, we were probably just shifting into third or fourth gear, and if we had carried on, like we stopped right in the kind of like first 3 months or something like that of COVID, when everybody was just
Okay.
online and consuming like information left, right, and center. And I truly believe if we had carried on, we would have been like really doing super, super well with it now. But that's hindsight as well, and we the decisions that we decided to stop were the right decisions at the time. I think
Right.
we'd actually reached a point where it was becoming quite difficult to do the podcasts, because I mean, he was in Australia, I'm in Brazil, but there's a 13-hour time difference. So
Exact opposite. Yeah.
exact opposite, but and just trying to get us on a call is difficult enough, but then you add someone in like a middle time zone, like the UK, or say, I don't know, the US, or something like that. It's extremely tough, bud. And yeah, I mean, but the main reason we actually stopped, well, we just stopped to have a little break, was because my computer died, bud. My Mac died here in Brazil, my MacBook. And I was like, oh no, and I lost everything. And then we were just like, okay, cool. Let's just take a break. Let's just reassess. Kragos wanted to check some stuff out with his wife Shanti, like to see if he could help run their business, or at least like really get it going. And it just became like longer and longer and longer that we didn't do it. And well, now it's flipping, like it's 3 years, but almost 2.5 years actually. And yeah, but we decided 2 years ago to sort of go our separate ways, whereby I would take over the podcast and Craig was going to help Shanti grow the business. And
Okay.
it was totally the right thing to do. And we like there's I mean, we're absolutely like our best mates still. There's been no issues whatsoever. We probably chat more than we ever have, although maybe the last couple of months since we had Maya. But yeah, there's definitely been no like issue in terms of our relationship. Our relationship has only strengthened. But I'm really excited to do the podcast again. But I've already pre-recorded a few interviews now. And I've spoken to Craig about this too. And I'm like, yes, bud, we actually didn't make it easy for ourselves. Like when you have two hosts or co-hosts that are interviewing, you're in completely different time zones. You think a little bit differently. It's you realize how difficult it is to actually to have like a very free flowing conversation. Yeah, and I'm only realizing that now. At the time we knew it wasn't like sort of as fluid as it could be and stuff, because we were totally learning. But I mean, we started from never really chatting, with anybody ever, sort of thing. So you're constantly
Hmm.
learning. But now, like
Yeah.
looking back, I was like, yeah, we actually made a really kind of like it was difficult, but I mean, it's not like it wasn't lacquer, but it wasn't easy to do. Um, and I'm really looking forward to hosting by myself now, and having kind of the same conversations, but I think the flow will be a little bit different. Um,
Yeah.
and it allows you to go like down some sort of things that all of a sudden pop up. You're like, yeah, cool, let's just go down there. Because we always had like questions that we had written down. Excuse me. Um, and we wanted to kind of get through a lot of them because they were really like interesting conversations. But sometimes when it went down like a sort of path you didn't expect, like being the person who's going to ask a question next, you're like, oh shit, do we carry on down here, or should I bring it back to the questions that we had set out? And it's not like you
Hmm.
can chat about it because you're all on the call together.
Right.
So yeah, so the conversations now I think will be a little bit different and more flowing. But it was an amazing experience. But like anyone that start a podcast because you're going to grow as a person, and it's going to be the best thing you can probably ever do, I think.
So, what is the title of the podcast? Will it remain the same?
Yeah, but I mean, I love the name, to be honest with you, Ridiculously Human, and it's going to remain the same. Um, Guests are going to be, I think the conversation is going to be a little bit different, because even though I'm still really interested in people's life stories and that, I think there's more value in just touching on life stories and then speaking about like what people are experts at. Um, so it's going to be less about the person and more about maybe topics. But the topics are not, it's not like specific or a certain category. It's just things that are interesting, really, to be honest with you, that I think, it's like, I mean, if you look at Joe Rogan, but I mean, that guy, the different variety of people that he has on his show is incredible. And you can pick and choose as a listener. You're like, yeah, cool. I don't dig the MMA ones. I'm like, oh, I'm not even going to listen to those, but I'll pick and choose some of the other ones. And I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe, well, definitely that means your show might not grow as fast or whatever that you want, because you haven't sort of really honed in on like maybe one or two subjects. But actually, at the end of the day, bud, half the reason I like to do the podcast is in a way just for my own journey and my own growth. And yeah, and maybe that's, I don't think it's selfish at all, but it's just like, it's just my own interest, really.
That's the way to do it. Like any artistic creation, I think, as long as you're finding joy in whatever it is that you're doing, that creates the flow that is much easier to stay with than when you force it down a specific way and maybe it doesn't feel as aligned to what's most pleasurable or most exciting for you in that moment. Eh?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like, I actually think I'm the type of person who has an interest in a lot of things. You know, I'm not like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not cultish, but when it comes to what I do or the information that I seek, I definitely seek lots of different types of inputs. And like you were saying, like now, like that actually provides to my enjoyment. And as long as I'm enjoying it, I think that sort of comes across in a show, you know, and people are like, oh, cool, they want to listen to us because this person's actually interested and they're showing good energy, and you know, and I want to actually be part of that. Um, so I'm always just been interested in a lot of things. Yeah, so gonna keep it that way.
Awesome. Nice. I'm looking forward to it being released again. Have you got a date of when you want to press play?
It's gonna be before the end of the month for sure. So I've got yeah, I want to do like a
The end
few
of the
more.
month being the end of
End of
February
Feb, yeah. So I wanted like,
23.
yeah, I want to get a few more sort of interviews under the belt, recorded,
Okay.
and then do a launch from there. So really excited, but
Awesome.
it's just, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it as well, but like it's interesting, you know, talking to people, isn't it?
I'm loving it. It's been such a gift. I love the format. I love the spaciousness that I have to do it. I love the fact that the conversation can go in any direction. Like you, we've given ourselves permission for it to, well, season one episode a week, and we decided to bang them out. We realized that that was kind of an ambitious goal without having a team and any systems in place. So what we were doing was creating this podcast, and we didn't have the process in place to be able to promote it or market it or get it out into the world. And so, yeah, we were, in order to stick to our objective of doing one show per month, one show per week, we just ran from one week to the next. We never quite had a bank of content. And so we took a breather at the end of 12 episodes and we were like, trying to catch our breath and be like, what the fuck just happened? And then we were like, okay. And then we sat for a while, much maybe like you, and we're like, okay, well, we don't want to go back to that space. And one day I was like, we'll do the podcast whenever we feel like it. If that happens to be one a week, cool. If it ends up being one a month, cool. Just flow with it. And we spent some time building team and process to onboard guests, offboard guests, and then promote each episode. And then also have the format to say, listen, if a conversation ends up being 45 minutes, golden. If I feel like doing a single episode or sharing a meditation or a 15-minute thing, golden. Like there's no set rules for us. And that seems like it's given us so much space that it's been really, really beautiful. And I'm loving it. Eh?
Yeah, for sure. But I think that's like such a cool way to do it as well, because you know, you might actually find by having like such a sort of wide sort of um, set of subjects and way of doing things that eventually you do want to hone in on something, you know, like make it a bit more specific. Like there's something that you really do enjoy a bit more doing, or people, like type of conversations that you have or people that you speak to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I mean, but knowing you, the type of guy you are, like, I hope it does remain broad, but because that's, you know, someone with a worldview like you is an important worldview to have out there, because you know we need to be interested in lots of things and share that stuff
Thank
too.
you, bro. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No worries,
Okay,
buddy.
before I let you go, I want to ask you one last question. Tell me about the biltong business that's kicking off in Brazil. I
Well,
want to
but
hear.
this is a great last question. It's going to be super short because I'll tell you something very interesting, but and I was, it was quite when you sent out the questionnaire about like, things that took courage and stuff like that, I don't think I really gave a good answer. But this one was, maybe it's not a courage thing that it's took, but so 2 weeks, no, not 2 weeks ago, probably about 6 weeks ago, we sat down with an expert here in Brazil who's a food production expert. And she's got like, you know, 2, 3 masters, whatever, in food production. Because we've been dealing with the council in terms of how to, what are our requirements to start this business, right? We've imported
Hmm.
these 2 biltong making machines from South Africa. This is the process. Like, what do we need to do? I mean, first of all, but Brazil is like ridiculous when it comes to paperwork. The amount of administration and bureaucracy you need to get through is pretty, like, it's insane. But I've never really experienced it anywhere else. And
Okay.
so anyway, this guy, he wasn't really giving us the information we needed, because I kept on saying, "Okay, cool. What else do we need? What else do we need? What else do we need?" And I don't know. He just was. I think he was like trying to help us, trying to be nice, whatever. And then we had this meeting with this lady, and it was probably one of the most important meetings I've ever had, um, whereby she probably spoke for 2 hours 45 minutes out of 3 hours, and just like let us know exactly how the industry works here, how the meat industry works and food industry works, what the
Uh-huh.
requirements are for dealing with um, raw meats, cooked meats, etc., etc., and
Uh-huh.
what it was going to actually take for us to kind of break into this kind of industry, and then also all the shenanigans of the industry, which is pretty bloody scary. Um, so to save you all the detail, at the end of the day, we basically decided to not go ahead with the biltong business as a business,
Hmm.
because
Wow.
it was just going to suck the life out of us. This was going to require way too much capital, and it wasn't even going to be a cert that we could even get it going, the permissions to get it going. And I mean,
Hmm.
we've already been at it for 7 months, but we still have we were nowhere near getting any approvals for any sign off. So we actually decided to hit it on the head, and just say, okay, cool. That was a massive lesson, took a bit of a hit financially. But in the long run, I think it's actually saved us, yeah, it just saved us a lot of hassle, and yeah, so we've actually decided not to launch the business, but
Wow.
yeah, so that's where it is. My friend Greg is going to carry on. He wants to sell artisanally, but as a business, but Biltong Brazil, unfortunately, is not going to happen, because there's too much bureaucracy. It costs way too much money to set up, and to be honest with you, I've got to the point in my life where I have full autonomy of what I want to do. And this lady, she said to me, she's like, Gareth, um, you identify as obviously Gareth, right? Um, she's like, but you'll have to identify as Mr. Biltong 24/7 for the next 5 years if you want this to actually be any sort of a success. And she's like, you need to ask yourself if that's what you want. And deep down inside, but that's definitely not what I want. And that
Hmm.
wasn't the main reason, but that was also a big reason for going, you know what? Sometimes you just got to realize when to say no, bud, and when to sort of, pull the plug. And so that's where we're at.
Sometimes the best decisions are the ones that we say no to early, hey? And even where there's a loss in inverted commas because you've invested some capital, like that's just a bit of school fees, you know? What's more expensive is trying for another 5 years and realizing that it's still a no. Like, yeah, that deep intuition that you heard and listened to, kudos, bro.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. And yeah, you're 100% right, but the long term the long term gain wasn't there, and it wasn't worth the pain, and the pain wasn't short term either. So um yeah, it feels like the right decision, but then, like, now I can really focus on lots of other things that I want to focus on.
Awesome. Well, maybe I'll send you a message and buy your biltong machine from you, because biltong Guatemala is going, and yeah, we started a slightly different way to you, and we've got a really small. I would say it's artisanal, but yeah, it's been really well received here, and yeah, it's growing, and we're probably making a few grand a month from it, and yeah, it feels cool, enjoying the process. So for me, it's been a real opportunity for me to share my love of food, and all the time that I'm spending doing online creations like the podcast and my online men's circle, it feels really good to be doing something in the 3D, like to actually create something with my hands that I actually get to go and serve and share inside the community. And it's connected me to farmers and to store owners and to customers. And so, yeah, it's been such a gift for me, and I've been really enjoying it. Eh?
No, that's amazing, Ben, and I'm super chuffed for you. And I think, yeah, you went about doing it the right way. Like, we should have done what you did, and yeah, but you live and you learn. That's for sure.
Well, I was close to wanting to just get the machine shipped here as well, and I think it might have been a very different scenario because I paid lots of school fees with a small box of biltong, and I know the version of me that when I had a machine that could do 100 kilograms, I would have started with that and realized, holy shit, how am I going to sell all of this? Or the mistakes that I made with $30 worth of meat would have been with $350 worth of meat, and that may have also maybe not given me the platform that I'm at the moment. So yeah, I think for the first time, I know the part of me that wants to go all in up front, buy the machine, get the thing shipped. I had the quote, I was about to pull the trigger, and Araminta was like, just start and do it. And yeah, anyway, Layla's box, Layla's the pup. Her little house became the first biltong box, and now we've got 2 boxes, and they're running 2 or 3 times a week. And yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, congrats, bud. You've done it the right way, that's for sure. So I'm super chuffed for you.
Sweet, bro. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out. Where can people connect with you if they want to learn more about you and your launch of the podcast coming up? What's the best way to get hold of you?
Yeah. So actually, at the moment, I really took a hiatus or hiatus, however you pronounce the word, from social media. Besides actually Twitter, so I've been using Twitter a lot, which my handle's Gareth E Martin. But the website for the podcast is www.ridic-human.com. And yeah, and that's where we'll be launching all the new podcasts from. And yeah, drop me a message wherever you want, and love to connect with people. And thank you to you for having me on the show, bud. I mean, so lucky to see you, and congrats for everything, bud. Such a slick operation that you run. So awesome stuff. Super happy for you.
Appreciate it, bro. I'm looking forward to when we can connect in person, whether it's in Brazil or the three of you come and visit Guatemala. But yeah, for now, loving that we got to connect on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Looking forward to seeing you too, man. Yesy, that'll be awesome.
Much love, bro.
All
Thanks,
right.
thanks.
Love, brother. See you, man. Bye bye.
Ciao. Bye.